am the real heiress, and I am extremely cruel. This is the most explosive and dramatic real heiress story I have ever seen. I guarantee it won't disappoint you. Enjoy the story. I was the real heiress, yet maliciously swapped at birth by a servant. From childhood, I grew up in a harsh environment, witnessing all the dark sides of society. After returning to my biological family, I was constantly told to give way to the fake heiress, never allowed to fight for love or affection. Everyone praised Ôn Phương Danh, who had been pampered and spoiled since childhood, as the happiest little princess in Beijing. Every year on her birthday, subsidiaries of the Own Corporation held grand celebrations. Meanwhile, I was deprived of my parents' love. My life was filled with endless labor and senseless beatings. It wasn't until the Own family's lawyer came to me that I learned the truth, that I, in fact, was their real daughter. On the day I returned, only a servant and driver came to pick me up. Carrying my fragile hope for the future, I stepped into one of the most luxurious villas. Before meeting the Own family, I still held a flicker of longing for familial warmth. The entire Own family was already waiting for me in the living room. Even though I had seen their photos and knew I resembled them, seeing them in person left me stunned. Ôn Phương Danh leaned in my mother's arms. Her curly hair was soft and bouncy, her fair skin delicate, her eyes slightly swollen as if she had just finished crying. When she looked at me, her tearful gaze was filled with hatred and resentment. Even though I had returned, my mother still gently held her hand, soothing her softly. The family had raised her as their precious princess. And me? I wore a faded school uniform, washed too many times, carrying a patched-up school bag used for 4 or 5 years. My hands were covered in calluses. Yes, this is truly my daughter. Ôn Thang Lung stepped forward, stroking my head, his voice full of affection. TL2, you've suffered so much. Yep Unsung hugged me with one arm, her eyes full of guilt. Now that you're home, those hard days are over. Ôn Phương Danh couldn't stand the scene. She burst into tears. Now that the whole family is reunited, I don't want to stay here and be an eyesore to everyone anymore, she cried before running back to her room. Ôn Ying Fang also anxiously said to me, Deal Deng has been spoiled since childhood. She just can't accept this right now. Please understand her. But it was her parents who exchanged my life for hers. Now that she had benefited all these years, she couldn't accept the reality. Yet my family wanted me, the one who suffered, to sympathize with her. What bitter irony! Before returning to the Own family, Jiang Tao asked me, once your parents protect you, will you become softer, kinder? At that time, I had answered, I don't know. But now, even the last trace of longing for familiar love has vanished. Why should I sympathize with her? I asked Ying Feng. He hadn't expected that response. For a moment, he was speechless. What do I have to sympathize with her for? Should I sympathize with her for enjoying 16 years of wealth that belonged to me, while I endured beatings and curses like an animal in her home? A flicker of shame appeared in his eyes, yet he still tried to defend Ôn Phương Danh. This wasn't her fault. Theo Dang never knew the truth. She is also a victim. I sneered, unwilling to continue. So what you mean is you still want to keep her here, right? Diao Dao, your father understands how you feel, but you also know your family's temperament. After all, Tiao Zhang was raised by me, my father said. I can't just heartlessly push her into hardship. What he said wasn't wrong. Even raising a cat or a dog for years creates attachment, let alone a daughter pampered since childhood. Yes, I understand, father, but I am the real daughter, the one with your blood. She is only a foster child. I hope you won't confuse this. Hearing that, Ôn Bianfeng immediately objected. You and Tiao Zhang are both daughters of the Ôn family. There's no difference between biological and foster. These past days, Tiao Zhang has already been full of guilt and pain. If word got out that she was just a foster daughter, she's never experienced any trauma before. How could she bear it? So, because I've been beaten since I was little, you think I'm lowly? That I can endure anything? Is that right? I stared straight into his eyes, anger hidden beneath my calm tone. Ôn Gianfeng frowned slightly. That's not what I meant. I've already agreed to let her stay. Don't tell me you see me as a coward. One time enduring, another time enduring, what difference does it make? Father agrees with you, Ôn Tangloi said firmly. Ôn Gianfeng wanted to argue further, but was stopped by father's look. He had already investigated my 16 years of suffering and knew exactly how miserable my life had been. Listening to me reopen those wounds only deepened his guilt. He and Ôn Gianfeng took me to see the room prepared for me, but I insisted on choosing for myself. Wandering through the house, I stopped in front of Ôn Fengdeng's room. Diep Nungsung was hugging her, soothing softly. Don't say such silly things. You will always be my daughter. I'll never let you leave. I pretended not to see and continued my walk. Aside from the master bedroom, Tiao Zhang's was the largest room in the house. Father, I want this room. I like the sunlight here, and I want to replace all the furniture. The moment those words left my mouth, Tiao Zhang, who had just stopped crying, burst into tears again, threatening to leave. Diep No Sung tried to calm her while saying to me, "This is Tiao Zhang's room. I've already prepared another room for you. Let your brother show you." "Come, I'll take you," Ôn Gianfeng said, trying to pull me along. I stepped back, avoiding his hand. "I've already seen that room. It's far smaller than this one. I don't want it." My eyes locked onto Diep Nungsung's, cold and distant. The foster daughter gets the large room, while I, the real daughter, is given the small one? What kind of logic is that? What do you mean, foster daughter? Both you and Tiao Zhang are my daughters. I know you're angry, but Tiao Zhang is also a victim. To her, I was simply making trouble. If I'm not the Ôn family's daughter, then let me step aside and give her back her place. Tiao Zhang cried loudly, demanding to leave, but Ôn Gianfeng held her tightly. "You will always be my sister. No one can drive you away." How touching, a perfect melodrama of deep bonds. Their love for each other was unshakable, and somehow I was made to look like the villain. Mother and brother both claimed she was the victim. For 16 years, she had been the pampered princess, while I lived like a beaten dog, a cursed slave. No, that isn't even all. Her biological parents loved her too. Otherwise, why would they have swapped her into my family? Even if our lives had never been switched, she would never have suffered like I did. They beat me whenever they wanted, cursed me whenever they pleased. Every year's tuition, I had to earn myself. They allowed me to study only because the higher my education, the greater my bride price would be later. Fortunately, heaven finally opened its eyes and returned me to the Ôn family. Otherwise, I'd still be trapped with no way out. Now that I've returned, everyone already has feelings for the fake daughter. They want to keep her. The Ôn family is so wealthy, she will continue living in luxury no matter what. At this, A hoarse laugh escaped my throat. She was clearly the one who benefited the most, yet you all call her a victim. If this is what being a victim looks like, living in the biggest room while I, the real daughter, is shoved into the small one, then I wouldn't mind being that kind of victim either. The sarcasm in my eyes was impossible to hide. They were all struck speechless. Even Ôn Phương Danh fell silent. I didn't want to look at them anymore, so I turned to Ôn Tan Loi, softening my tone. Dad, can the furniture in this room be replaced within 3 hours? Like a hedgehog with everyone else, I only showed dependence when facing him, because he was the one who truly held power in the Ôn family. Of course, don't worry, I'll take care of everything, he agreed. With money, progress came quickly. Meanwhile, under the gentle coaxing of Yep Ngan Cern and Ôn Leong Gyang, tearful Ôn Phương Danh reluctantly stepped into the room that had been originally prepared for me. Though Ôn Tan Loi felt guilty toward me, he still didn't want the family torn apart, so he urged me to live in harmony with Ôn Phương Danh. When only he and I remained in the living room, I slowly dropped my strong facade, revealing a sorrowful expression, tears welling in my eyes. Deal too. Be good. I know you've suffered a lot of grievances, he said gently. Stubbornly, I wiped my tears. Dad, mother and brother are too biased. They don't care about me. I don't like them. From today onward, the only family I have is you. You silly girl. What nonsense are you saying? Don't imagine things. Obviously, your mother and brother care about you a lot. Even as he defended them, the smile tugging at the corners of his lips betrayed his satisfaction. At dinner, Ôn Phương Danh locked herself in her room, while I calmly enjoyed the meal, completely at ease. No matter how worried Yep Ngan Cern and Ôn Lien Phong seemed, no matter how they tried to shield Ôn Phương Danh, I ignored it all. Only when Ôn Tan Loi spoke to me did I happily respond. Tonight's feast had been carefully prepared to celebrate my return. The dishes were delicious, and I nearly ate until I was stuffed. Seeing me eat so heartily, Yep Ngan Cern's eyes revealed pity. Till too, eat slowly. Eating too much at night isn't good for your stomach. But almost immediately, her thoughts turned back to her heartbroken biological daughter who had no appetite. Teal Dawn is such a good girl. She's just shocked right now. That's why she shut herself away. Mother, please stop talking, Ôn Lien Phong interrupted irritably. She doesn't even care about you, so why bother? I fully agreed with him. I had no desire to answer anything Yep Ngan Cern said. Perhaps she felt guilty and wanted to make it up to me later. But between me and Ôn Phương Danh, her favoritism would always lean toward Ôn Phương Danh, and Ôn Phương Danh would certainly never let me grow close to her. She'd only keep stirring up trouble. My trust and love for parents had already been worn down to nothing under the whips and insults of Ôn Phương Dang's biological parents. I myself was not someone who tolerated being wronged. I had no intention of living miserably anymore. Therefore, the only relationship worth building in this family was with Ôn Tan Loi. I looked only at him. Assuming I was still sulking, he reminded me kindly, "Make sure you sleep early. Tomorrow we'll go to school to handle your enrollment." "Yes, Father." Yep Ngan Cern seemed troubled by my cold attitude, while Ôn Lien Phong looked angry. As soon as I logged online, countless messages popped up, all asking whether the Ôn family was treating me well. I only opened my chat with Zhang Tiao. Everything was still under control. "Don't worry." He replied almost immediately. "What do you have to worry about? The ones who should be worried are the Owns. Looks like they've disappointed you after all." My hand brushed over a row of expensive designer handbags, and the corner of my lips curled slightly. The Own family's wealth did not disappoint me. I was more than satisfied with what I saw. Ôn Phương Danh wasn't completely foolish. After the room incident yesterday, she was noticeably more obedient this morning. Yep Nun Cern and Ôn Lien Feng looked at her with pity, while Ôn Tan Loi seemed pleased. During the meal, he even suggested that Ôn Phương Dang should take care of me at school. She obediently agreed, but the moment we got into the car, her attitude changed. She looked at me with arrogance, her tone dripping with hidden mockery.
I will take good care of you. Really? I look forward to it, I replied with a smile. At this top aristocratic school in Beijing, Ôn Phương Den was considered the queen. With the power and status of the Ôn family, no one dared to defy her. When a strange face like mine followed behind her into the school, everyone around threw curious glances at me. Someone who knew her asked, "Who is she? Why haven't I seen her before? Since she came with you, is she a member of your family?" The moment the word family was mentioned, Ôn Phương Dan's expression turned cold. "She's just a little dog I brought along." As soon as those words left her mouth, the way people looked at me immediately became strange and gloomy. I went to the homeroom teacher's office first, then entered the morning self-study class. The homeroom teacher led me to the podium and asked me to introduce myself. My eyesight was sharp. The moment I stepped into the classroom, I saw the only empty desk. The brand new books on it had been torn to shreds, and yogurt had been poured all over them, leaving the place a mess. The spoiled heirs and heiresses in the classroom all stared at me with interest, waiting to see a good show. Ôn Phương Dan was also in the same class. She curved her lips into a mocking smile, eyes filled with provocation. Honestly, I hadn't expected her to be this foolish. Standing on the podium, I gave a gentle smile. "Hello, everyone. My name is Ôn Tu. My father is Ôn Tan Loi of Ôn Corporation. I am his only biological daughter." I clearly saw Ôn Phương Dan's face grow uglier by the second. Her biological mother used to be a nanny in my house. That woman cruelly swapped our fates. The words I spoke made the whole class gasp in shock as I calmly revealed the family secret. But my parents are kind-hearted people. They adopted Ôn Phương Dan. In the future, she can still continue to live in our home. Hearing this explosive revelation shaking the upper-class circle, the classmates were utterly astonished. They looked at me, then at Ôn Phương Dan. Is that true? So she's just a fake heiress. And indeed, my appearance bore a striking resemblance to the Ôn family. Ôn Phương Dan could no longer endure the murmurs and shouted, "Shut up!" The classroom instantly fell silent. I calmly met her hateful glare and walked over to that filthy desk. Looking around, I noticed no one dared to meet my eyes. "What's going on here?" I asked with a smile. The homeroom teacher's face darkened at once and immediately ordered a replacement desk and chair. A few boys stood up to help, quickly bringing me a new desk, chair, and fresh textbooks. Ôn Phương Dan, sitting right behind me, gnashed her teeth and muttered, "How dare you reveal this without our parents' permission? They will never forgive you." She was so ridiculously naive, it made me laugh. I am their biological daughter. I only spoke the truth. What could they possibly do to me? My words pierced her deepest wound. Her voice turned vicious. "I'll make sure you know who the one and only heiress of the Ôn family is." As soon as class ended, she stormed out and didn't return for the next 2 periods. At lunchtime, I received a text message from a boy. Tom Huang wanted to meet me at the student council office. The Ôn and Tom families were the 2 most powerful clans in Beijing. Tom Huang was the future heir of the Tom family. He and Ôn Phương Van had been engaged since childhood. They were childhood sweethearts with a deep bond.
Surely Ôn Phương Danh had gone crying to him, claiming I bullied her. That must be why he wanted to see me, to defend her honor. With the heirs of two great families pampering her like that, no wonder Ôn Phương Danh dared to be so arrogant with me. The student council of this school was run entirely by heirs from the richest and most powerful families in Beijing. I was eager to step into the student council office and meet these so-called heirs. The school had dedicated an entire building solely for the student council. Since its members were all heirs of powerful conglomerates, this building was the most luxurious place on campus. I walked through it, savoring the joy that wealth and power could bring. Once, I had been nothing but a poor girl struggling to survive at the very bottom of this city. But now, I stood at the peak of the pyramid of wealth and influence. The elevator carried me straight to the top floor, where the richest and most powerful heirs of the school gathered, lounging on sofas by a massive floor-to-ceiling curved glass window. At the center sat Tum Huang and Ôn Phương Danh. In front of Tum Huang, Ôn Phương Danh no longer showed the arrogance she displayed in class. Instead, she looked weak and pitiful, leaning into his arms like a fragile willow in need of shelter. His hand gently caressed her hair, eyes filled with pity as he gazed at her. She actually dared to come? Bold, isn't she? Someone smirked at me as if watching a comedy play unfold. Instantly, everyone's gaze turned toward me. Tum Huang's eyes turned cold, his handsome face darkening like a brewing storm. Back in elementary school, I had often heard whispers about him, that the crown prince of the Tum family was so good-looking he could easily step into the entertainment industry. Now that I saw him in person, I realized those rumors had not been exaggerated at all. I glanced at him with a trace of appreciation, then shifted my gaze to the other council members standing nearby. Unsurprisingly, these heirs all had decent looks. "Don't you know how to greet us when you see us? Ever heard of basic manners?" A boy tapped his baseball bat lightly against the floor, lips curled in malicious smile. I recognized him immediately from my research. Chong Gongguan, the youngest son of the once powerful Chong family. He had been Tum Huang's childhood friend and was considered one of the three most popular boys at this elite academy. Yet, the Chong family had long declined, and his current standing in the school existed only because of Tum Huang's protection. He was the one provoking the confrontation while the others stood by watching with gleeful expressions. I stood tall in the grand hall, alone, yet my aura did not falter. My voice was cold as I shot back. "You expect me to greet you? Just who do you think you are?" The smirk froze on his face the moment he realized who I was. "What's wrong? Out of words? Didn't you want me to greet you? Hurry up and introduce yourself so I'll know how to address you." I wasn't planning on letting him off easily. Every word I spoke pressed down like weight. Even his father wouldn't dare speak to me like that if he were standing here. And this boy, just because of Tum Huang's backing, thought he could act superior? "Please, she was only joking." Ôn Phương Danh quickly spoke up, her soft voice defending him. Immediately, Chong Gongguan looked at her with gratitude, while Tum Huang's expression grew even darker. "Oh, so it was just a joke." I let out a cold laugh. "Then I suppose I've misunderstood. In that case, why don't I joke with him like this every single day? Would that be all right?" "Don't be like that." Ôn Phương Danh put on a pitiful act, feigning fear. "Our family raised you all these years and never treated you badly. Yet the moment I'm bullied, you not only refuse to help me, you even side with outsiders? Truly ungrateful." At my words, Ôn Phương Danh burst into sobs, tears streaming down her cheeks. How could Tum Huang endure seeing the woman he loved being humiliated? His hand clenched tight, voice sinking low as he barked, "Shut your mouth." If I weren't a girl, he probably would have already thrown a punch at me. "Ôn Tu, I'm warning you. Cho Zhang is my fiancé. If you dare bully her again, don't blame me for showing no mercy." I laughed and asked, "And how exactly do you plan on showing me no mercy?" "You don't want to know."
He didn't even bother to hide the murderous intent in his eyes. In Beijing, if the young master of the Tum family wants someone to disappear, all it takes is a single word. But among those he can touch, the Own family is absolutely off limits. I understood the implication immediately and couldn't help but burst out laughing. Everyone else was confused. Why would I laugh at a threat like that? Some even looked at me as if I had lost my mind. They were too used to Tum Huang's arrogance. But I wasn't so easily intimidated. The Qing dynasty fell long ago. You really think being called a crown prince a few times makes you the actual prince of Beijing? Tum Huang had been worshipped his entire life. This was the first time anyone had dared strip away his dignity. His expression darkened, storm clouds gathering on his face. I never say things twice. Ôn Phương Danh clutched his hand, her voice soft and pitiful. Brother Huang, please don't be angry. She's the real daughter of the Own family. I'm already grateful she allowed me to stay at the Own household. I'm just too kind. That's why she bullies me. He soothed her gently, his eyes brimming with pity. Auntie Own and everyone have always loved you like their own daughter. Don't be afraid. With me here, no one will ever hurt you. Her little circle of friends immediately chimed in, backing her up. Climbs her way up to a powerful family and dares to swagger in here? No wonder Brother Feng warned us to look after Tiao Dan. He must have known this would happen. That's right. With Brother Feng and Tum Huang protecting Tiao Dan, you'd better know your place. So that was it. No wonder they dared to put on airs with me. It was because the Own family's heir had told them to watch over his little sister. How precious she must be, this adopted daughter, protected from the slightest grievance. So this was all a setup, wasn't it? You called me here just to slander me and flex your power with people like you? My voice was ice cold as I stared down the three who had spoken up. They quickly realized that if I targeted them, no one would dare shield them. A faint mocking smile tugged at my lips. I tilted my chin slightly, arrogance radiating from my posture, and walked straight toward the sofa in the center. As I passed by Tum Huang and Ôn Phương Danh, she suddenly reached out, sobbing pitifully, and grabbed at me. I frowned and shook her hand off. She deliberately fell backwards, right into Tum Huang's arms. Ôn Phương Danh was the woman he loved most, and love had long blinded his reason. No matter how contrived her act looked, he saw only a girl suffering injustice. Fury overtook him. His hand shot up, and smack. The slap landed with his full strength. My ears rang, my cheek instantly swollen red. Gasps echoed throughout the grand hall. From behind him, Ôn Phương Danh hid her smile, lips curving in triumph. I touched my swollen cheek, and this time I couldn't suppress the smile spreading across my own lips. A gleam of excitement flashed in my eyes. You struck first. Before anyone could recover from the shock of Beijing's so-called crown prince laying hands on the Own family's true daughter, I had already retaliated. My moves were swift, ruthless. In seconds, I had him pinned, driving my foot into his groin, yanking his hair, ready to smash his head against the floor. If I kept going, someone would die. Everyone rushed forward, dragging me back. Luckily for him, I'd had my fun. I released him, stepping back a few paces before dropping casually into the center sofa. Only then did Ôn Phương Danh dare rush over, clinging to him with tears streaming down her face. Tum Huang writhed in the floor, his eyes burning with rage and disbelief. He had never imagined that not only could I fight back, but that I would fight this viciously. Spoiled young masters like him, born with silver spoons, had never fought for survival. They only knew how to brawl recklessly. I was different. Every fight I had ever been in had been for my life. To win, I had to be ruthless,
unyielding. I heard you call this seat the throne of the student council. Sitting here, I must admit, it feels quite good. I leaned back against the sofa, lips curved in a lazy grin. My coat was half torn, my cheeks swollen red, hair in disarray. Yet the smile at my mouth, wild, unrestrained, made me look, in their eyes, like a madwoman.
Perhaps it was the madness in my smile or the cold fire in my eyes. But the so-called heirs, normally so arrogant and untouchable, could only stand frozen in silence. Then Ôn Phương Danh voice rang out, crisp and trembling in the heavy stillness. "Sister, it's one thing for you to bully me, but how could you hit Brother Tum Huang? The Thum family will never forgive you." Oh, was that supposed to scare me? I patted my chest dramatically, my tone dripping with mockery. How terrifying! Tell me, what's the school policy when students get into a fight? Right then and there, I dialed the principal in front of everyone. "Principal, Tum Huang hit me." "Miss On, are you all right?" The principal's voice shook. "Was there some kind of misunderstanding between you and young Master Tum?" "No misunderstanding. I hit him back too." With that, I hung up. They all looked at me as if I were insane. Of course, Ôn Wenfeng stood on the side of Ôn Phương Danh. Me, though I was the real daughter of the Ôn family, I had never been their favorite. And now I had struck the heir of the Thum family, not trying to reconcile, but daring to escalate the situation. A fight between the Ôn and Thum heirs? No school would dare take it lightly. Parents were notified immediately, and the school doctor was rushed in to examine us both. Ôn Phương Danh sobbed, blaming herself in front of Tum Huang. "It's all my fault. If not for me, you and sister wouldn't have fought." He tenderly wiped her tears. "Don't blame yourself. She was the one who raised her hand against you. No one is allowed to hurt you in front of me." I rolled my eyes. All I'd done was brush her hand away. She wasn't hurt in the slightest. But being worshipped as a crown prince his whole life, Tum Huang had developed the arrogance of someone who thought bullying others was his right. Anyone who dared defy him, unforgivable. The Tum family's representative arrived soon after. His mother. She'd been shopping nearby when she got the call. And knowing her son, she didn't believe for a second he could have been on the losing end. But when she walked in, there he was, sitting stiffly on the sofa, face dark, body unscathed. And me, half my face swollen, hair disheveled, looking wild and dangerous. Huang, she frowned at her son. "Why would you hit her so hard? What on earth happened? If it were anyone else, fine, but this is the Ôn family's real daughter, the one they only just brought home." His jaw clenched. "She wasn't gentle with me either." "Where are your injuries then?" she pressed. He had no answer. I had struck him, viciously, deliberately, in places that left no marks but robbed him of breath, forcing him into silence. All he could do was glare at me, spitting out bitter words. Despicable. Despicable? Perhaps I always had been. Perhaps I always would be. Ôn Wenfeng quickly interjected, tears shimmering in his eyes. "Aunt Chu, it's all my fault. Brother Tum only fought because he was defending me." But he snapped back instantly. "This has nothing to do with you. She bullied you first." His mother understood then. Her son had stepped into the Ôn family's mess for the sake of this girl. She shot him a glare, then hurried to me asking the school doctor about my condition. Hearing that I'd been slapped hard enough to cause temporary tinnitus, dangerously close to rupturing an eardrum, her face darkened. Without hesitation, she struck her son several times.
Her blows weren't heavy, but enough to show her stance. Tiao Tu, Auntie apologizes on Ah Huang's behalf. Don't worry, when we go home, his father and I will make sure this doesn't go unpunished. No sooner had she spoken than Yep Ming Shang and Ôn Phương Danh rushed in. Their first concern? Ôn Phương Dan, of course, hovering over her, fussing to see if she was hurt. Only after confirming she was perfectly fine did they finally turn to Tam Huang. And at last, their eyes landed on me.
Tu, what happened to your face? At those words, Ôn Phương Danh burst into tears, clutching Diep Nung Sheng's hand. Mother, it's all my fault. If it weren't for me, Brother Thum Hung would never have fought with Sister. Thum Hung immediately snapped. She was the one who struck first. Stop blaming yourself for everything. He hit you again? Ôn Yen Fong's expression shifted instantly, his gaze turning toward me, filled with disgust and fury. Ôn Tu, don't go too far. Diep Nung Sheng had known since childhood that Thum Hong always shielded Ôn Phương Danh. Hearing him speak like this, she could even understand his actions. Tiel Tu, why would you hit Tiel Dan? Her face was carved with disappointment. I told you already, both you and Tiel Dan are my daughters. Stop targeting her. Mother and son of the Ôn family stood united on Ôn Phương Danh side. Around us, the other students watched me with either ridicule or pity in their eyes. Madame Thumb, however, looked on with surprise, as though this had nothing to do with her. I clapped my hands slowly, a sardonic smile tugging at my lips. Ôn Phương Danh, your acting is remarkable. You shouldn't have studied dance. You should have gone into drama. I wasn't acting. Why would you say that? She whispered, eyes darting to Ôn Yen Fong, silently pleading for help. He opened his mouth to defend his precious little sister, but I cut him off, my voice sharp as a blade. Shut up. I've already given you enough time to say everything you wanted to. Now it's my turn. I only need 5 minutes for Chun Tuat to repeat what really happened. My cold stare pinned him down. This morning, something interesting happened at school. Let's have a listen. I tapped play on my phone. A clipped recording spilled into the air. Who is she? I've never seen her ride in the car with you before. Is she family? She's just a little puppy, I picked up. I swept my hair back, exposing the swollen half of my face to everyone, my eyes icy. Tell me, what does puppy mean? Everyone here knew. To offend a member of the student council was to be branded a puppy, a label that turned you into a school-wide target for ridicule, bullying, and torment until you broke and dropped out. Other than the parents present, every single student in the room understood perfectly, yet not one dared to answer. Shock spread across the faces of Ôn Yen Fong and Thum Huang. Their gazes shifted sharply toward Ôn Phương Danh. She shook her head frantically, panic spilling over, but the recording still played. No excuse could erase it. Tiel Dun, how could you say something like that to Tiel Tu? Diep Nung Sheng's voice trembled with horror. Bloodlines truly are miraculous, I sneered. My birth parents called me a dog. You call me a dog. Very consistent. Shame flickered in both Diep Nung Sheng and Ôn Yen Fong's eyes, but still, they tried to smother the scandal. Tiel Tu, if there's an issue, let's discuss it at home. This isn't the place. Oh, so when you insult me publicly in front of everyone, that's perfectly fine. But when the truth threatens Ôn Phương Danh, suddenly I'm supposed to keep quiet? My voice was dripping with mockery. You really are the perfect doting mother and brother. The color drained from Diep Nung Sheng's face. I wasn't finished.
Before I even came here, I checked the school forums. Ôn Phương Danh is called the queen there. The moment she let slip that I was a so-called puppy, the entire forum exploded. Everyone's been brainstorming ways to humiliate me, just to please her. I flashed my phone screen at them, showing the screenshots. Want me to add you to the group chat? I'll share the posts with you. No one replied. No? Fine then. I shrugged. This school really is efficient. When my homeroom teacher led me to class, my desk was already covered in yogurt and soda, and my brand new textbooks had been shredded to pieces. I leaned back, smirking. But credit where it's due, the teachers here are also efficient. I asked the homeroom teacher to pull the security footage. By the end of the second period, I had the tapes in my hands.
I played the security footage for everyone to see. So, are you sure you don't want to join the group? I don't think watching this alone is clear enough. The faces of the student council members twisted in disbelief. They had bullied countless people before, but this was the first time they'd faced someone who kept evidence. On screen, Ôn Phương Danh sat right behind me, smiling as she watched them tear apart my books. The Ôn family had truly wasted money raising a wolf in human skin. As the video rolled, I continued. To protect myself, I revealed my true identity as the Ôn family's biological daughter to my classmates. Ôn Phương Danh wasn't happy. She threatened me, said she'd make sure I learned who the real daughter of the Ôn family was. Then she stormed out of class instead of studying. Looking at it now, it's obvious she must have gone straight to find Thang Huang. At the mention of his name, a mocking smile curled on my lips as I played an audio recording. Who was looking for me? Thang Huang's looking for you. Get to the student council office quickly. If you're late, he'll be angry. Gasps rippled across the room. Even this she had recorded? I raised an eyebrow and said nothing. In all my years, I had never fought a battle unprepared. Every threat, every death warning from Thang Huang against me, I had it all recorded. Madame Thang was sharp. She could see clearly that it was Ôn Phương Danh who kept fanning the flames. Exposed, Ôn Phương Danh could only sob and admit defeat. I'm sorry. I was just too scared. I was afraid once people found out I wasn't the real daughter, they'd look down on me. Sister came back and took my room. I was terrified she'd take everything from me, that I'd be thrown out. I was so scared. She broke down helpless. A girl spoiled her entire life, who had never endured even the smallest grievance. These past 2 days had already drained all the tears she had. Yep Nung Sung and Ong Nung Feng's hearts softened. Ong Nung Feng told me, I understand now. Tiltu, you were wronged. All right, Tiltu, enough. Let mother take you to the hospital to check your face. I laughed. Then, right in front of them, I called the police. Ong Nung Feng lunged to grab my phone. Without hesitation, I slapped him hard across the face. As shock flashed in his eyes, I calmly read the address aloud to the police. When the call ended, I looked at him coldly. This isn't over. Then I turned to Thang Huang, raising my voice. You said I laid hands on Ôn Phương Danh first, and that's why you hit me. So tell me, how exactly did I touch her? Did I punch her? Did I kick her? I demanded, sharp and relentless. Even arrogant, overbearing Thang Huang faltered for a moment, unable to answer. What? You won't say it? Then I'll say it for you. She grabbed me. I shook her hand off. That's all. That counts as laying hands? I jabbed the finger at my swollen and bruised face, my voice breaking into fury. This is laying hands. I was beaten like this, and my so-called family only told me to shut my mouth and endure. If you won't give me justice, the police will. Half my life had been nothing but bullying. I had endured enough. Now I had a father. I was the real Ôn family. They would never bully me again.
By the final words, I was shouting, tears spilling down my face. Stubbornly, I wiped them away with my sleeve. I had always thought I could take everything lightly, but some wounds still weighed heavy in my heart. The grand hall fell into a suffocating silence. Everyone looked shaken. Yup Nung Sung, guilt-ridden, reached for me through her tears, but I shoved her hand aside. On Yum Feng's guise was complicated, as though he wanted to speak, but in the end, he stayed silent. With the police now involved, Madame Kung could no longer stand idly by. She stepped forward, ready to apologize on behalf of her son. Unexpectedly, I turned to her and said, "Thank you." "What?" Her face showed genuine surprise. "Thank me? For what?"
"What are you thanking me for?" Madame Thumb asked in confusion. I answered softly, eyes glistening with tears. "Because you were the only one who asked the school doctor about my injuries. I truly appreciate your concern." Though a trace of resentment lingered in her heart over me calling the police, Madame Thumb couldn't help but feel compassion when she saw how pitiful I looked. "Thank you so much, but Thumb Wang is already grown. He must take responsibility for his actions." She chose not to speak further. Any more words would only make things worse. I lifted my head, forcing my tears back, and quickly left the hall. Onion Feng rushed after me, gripping my wrists tightly at the elevator. His voice was helpless. "Do you really have to go this far?" He tried to explain. It was indeed Tiao Yang's fault. She just doesn't feel safe. She was afraid you'd drive her away, so she struck first. Once we're home, I'll make her apologize to you. I yanked my hand free, brushing it off like it was filth. "Stop pretending, Onion Feng. You graduated from this school. Don't tell me you don't know what Choquan means." He fell silent under my words. "Have you been resenting Mother and me since yesterday?" I shook my head. "No. I already told you. Blood is a miracle. You and I are the same. If it had been you switched at birth and later brought home, I'm certain you too would have protected your foster brother." I stepped into the elevator and pressed the close button. He looked as if he wanted to force his way in to continue the argument, but I warned him coldly, "Stay away from me, or I won't hold my tongue." Imagine the headlines. The heiress of a powerful family bullied at school, the thumb heir shielding the fake heiress. Every topic like that would explode with attention. Hearing that, Onion Feng hesitated and stepped back, warning me not to go too far. The elevator door slid shut, just as I wanted. Foolish brother. Of course I knew Onion Feng wanted to strike first, to intimidate me. After all, her goal and mine were the same. Everyone from the top floor was taken away by the police. These heirs, raised from birth with expectations of inheriting empires, this was their first time being hauled into a police station. The forensic report classified my injuries as minor. The police relayed the result to Madame Thumb, instructing her to apologize sincerely and attempt reconciliation. If I refused forgiveness, her son would be detained. At the mention of detention, Ôn Phương Danh grew even more frantic than Madame Thumb. She cried, urging her son to get examined as well. But his injuries were in hidden places. Thumb Huang shook his head, refusing, simply staring at me in silence. Madame Thumb dragged him forward and urged him to apologize, but Thumb Huang pressed his lips together, stubbornly refusing to bow. Meanwhile, Yup Nin Sung and Onion Feng tried desperately to plead on his behalf. The Ôn and Thumb families maintained a facade of closeness. Neither side wanted to offend the other. But I sat coldly in the mediation room chair, unmoved by anyone's persuasion. Not until word of the incident reached the true powers within both families. When Ôn Thumb Luri finally arrived, fury was etched into his forehead. In his eyes, my refusal to back down against Thumb Huang was reckless, thoughtless. But the moment I saw him, my icy mask shattered. Tears welled up. I rushed into his arms, sobbing pitifully. Dad, you finally came. They were all bullying me. His words stuck in his throat, silenced by my tears. Before, I was always bullied, but now I have a father. You'll be my shield. I looked up at him in trembling faith, eyes shining through tears. The sudden shift in my demeanor left Yep Ninsern and Onion Fung visibly flustered, unable to react.
My demeanor pleased him. Ôn Thang Loi gently patted my back and coaxed me. Tiểu Thu has suffered enough. Of course, your father will be your shield. Across the room, Father Thumb scolded his son. Thumb Huang glared at me, his eyes brimming with hatred and loathing, utterly unconcealed. For the proud heir of the Thumb family, this must have been the most humiliating moment of his life. Feigning fear beneath his gaze, I sobbed and whispered, "His eyes are terrifying. He'll definitely hit me again at school." Father Thumb's fury exploded. He kicked his son and ordered him to apologize. But Thumb Huang still refused to bow his head. Seeing her husband about to strike again, Madame Thumb quickly stepped in to shield her son. "He's stubborn by nature. Kicking him won't help," she pleaded. The police intervened, suggesting both sides be separated for now, with reconciliation attempts to follow later. Madame Thumb pulled her son out of the room, while the others were summoned outside as well. In the mediation room, only Ôn Thang Loi and I remained. I knew he couldn't openly clash with the Thumb family for my sake, so after crying a while, I stubbornly wiped away my tears, tucked my hair behind my ear, and revealed the half of my face swollen red from the beating. "Father," I spoke first, "in this world, only you are truly good to me. I don't want to make things difficult for you. I'll agree to sign the settlement papers." The hedgehog bristling before outsiders suddenly softened, willing to swallow her grievances for him. This touched Ôn Thang Loi deeply. "Good girl, Tiểu Thu," he murmured. And I pressed further, my voice low yet sharp. "Still, Father, if he isn't taught a lesson, when I return to school he will definitely bully me again." A glint flashed in his eyes. "Don't worry. I'll speak to Uncle Thumb. Thumb Huang won't dare trouble you again." Just a subtle hint, yet this old fox understood immediately. He went outside and conversed with Uncle Thumb for a long time. When he returned, his expression was radiant, mood clearly lifted. No doubt he had secured some benefit. Father Thumb had been forced to pay. At home, of course, Thumb Huang would be punished. Back at the own residence, Ôn Thang Loi carefully reviewed all the evidence I had submitted to the police. Ôn Thong Van stood nearby, clutching her hands anxiously, tears shimmering in her eyes. Having understood the full situation, he sternly scolded her, froze her credit cards, and ordered her to apologize to me. This daughter had always been his precious jewel. Though disappointed, he wasn't ready to abandon her completely. But my stance was unyielding. I refused her apology. "I don't want to make things difficult for Father, so I won't press further. But you stole my identity to gain the life you have now. My whole family has been your benefactor. Don't you dare act ungrateful again." Her face twisted with humiliation, tears spilling despite herself. Unable to endure, Ôn Yenfeng leapt to her defense. "Thiel Dang already apologized. Why must you speak so cruelly?" I chuckled coldly. "Cruel? I'm nothing compared to you. Those students in the council who insulted me, weren't they emboldened because you spoke first?" His lips parted, but no words came. He was silenced, unable to refute me. I had no desire to drag things further. Using fatigue as an excuse, I retired to my room. Later at dinner, Ôn Thong Vang came knocking. The moment she saw me, her eyes burned with venom. "You started recording the moment you stepped on campus, didn't you? You planned this all along. You wicked woman. You tricked us all." I merely laughed without replying. Then suddenly, I slipped a hand into her coat pocket, pulled out her phone, and sure enough, it was recording. I stopped the recording, laughing so hard I leaned against the door. Idiot, I sneered, tossing the phone back at her. You already know what kind of person I am. From now on, tuck your tail between your legs and stop playing stupid games in front of me. She glared, her face twisted with resentment. I'd laughed enough. Without another word, I slammed the door shut. As I passed her, she muttered bitterly, "You've been the Own family's heiress for over 10 years, and yet you still rely on men to deal with me. Pathetic." Whatever expression she wore behind my back didn't matter. Humming lightly, I cheerfully descended the stairs.
At the dinner table, Ôn Phương Danh ate timidly, sneaking glances at me before daring to pick up her food. The sight pained both Yep Ngun Dung and Ôn Yin Song. Even Ôn Tan Loi, unable to bear it, placed food into her bowl himself and gently said, "At home, you should eat whatever you like." Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded gratefully. Just as she was about to speak, I cut her off. "Father, I want to join the student council." Her face froze in shock. The chopsticks in her hand clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Very well," Ôn Tan Loi replied without hesitation. "I'll arrange it for you." For the Ôn family, who donated heavily to the school each year, student council membership was a matter of a single word. Soon, both Phương Danh and I held the position of vice president. The only difference was that she had willingly chosen the role, while mine was a temporary arrangement, lacking the management experience to replace Tham Hong just yet. This so-called elite academy was a miniature version of society itself. In the past, many had bullied me to curry favor with Phương Danh. Now, once my true identity was revealed, they scrambled to flatter me instead. I bore no grudges. Instead, I gathered followers, swiftly building a faction of my own. With the condition that my grades not falter, I immersed myself in studies, focused on English, and even hired renowned golf and tennis coaches. My days became a blur of relentless practice. Lately, Yep Ngun Dung often sought reconciliation, but with Phương Danh always clinging at her side, twisting words, sowing discord, she fell for the act every time. It felt like a waste of time. I no longer even had the patience to listen. Ôn Yin Fong, proud and arrogant by nature, seldom lowered his head. Occasionally, he asked about my situation with cool detachment. My replies were perfunctory. I had no desire for conversation. Since her schemes had been exposed, Ôn Phương Danh had turned strangely obedient, clinging to the family with exaggerated sweetness, flaunting the affection lavished on her before me as if to provoke. Many sympathized with me, but I couldn't be bothered. She had been raised in the Ôn family's love since birth. I could never replace that bond. Their guilt toward me was fleeting. In their hearts, she still held the greater weight. To waste my days entangled with Phương Danh would be foolish. Their apologies, their concessions, such things should be spent on matters of real value. One day, I ran into Tham Hong and Phương Danh at our usual tennis club. Pretending not to see them, I turned to leave, but his cold voice called me back. "Ôn Tu." His tone was frosty, his eyes sharp with distaste. "I will never be engaged to you. My fiancé can only be Jiu Zhang." So this was no coincidence. They had sought me out deliberately. Phương Danh stood beside him, tears brimming in her eyes. "Sister, please, don't come between us." The Thumb family's switch in betrothal candidates was no surprise to me. In truth, what they desired was the dowry, the Ôn family shares attached to whichever daughter married in. Though Phương Danh had only been fostered in the Ôn household, it was uncertain how much she would ultimately inherit. That this matter surfaced so early, while we were still only in our second year of high school, was almost laughably premature.
After so many years as the Ôn family's daughter, she still couldn't see the Thumb family's real aim. And instead of facing reality, she came running to me with petty theatrics. Pathetic. My voice was cool, dismissive. So tell me, why are you here? Stop pretending, Thumb Hong snapped. I'm warning you. Quit your dirty tricks behind Uncle Ôn's back. The words came not from a petty schoolboy, but from the future heir of the Thumb family. Even someone as newly initiated into high society as I was could sense the weight behind them. How could he not? Whether he truly knew or simply refused to believe, I had little interest in deciphering. Remember this, I said evenly. I am the true daughter of the Ôn family. And you, I turned to Phương Danh with a cold, mocking smile. What are you? You're nothing more than a little pet my family raised. Don't even dream of things that don't belong to you. Both of them were shaken. Thumb Hoang, furious, declared he would never marry a cruel woman like me. His fiancée could only be Ôn Phương Danh. Satisfied with his reaction, I'd poured fuel on the fire. Empty words from the great young master of the Thumb family are useless. If you have any real ability, convince your parents not to change the engagement. My words silenced him, his face turning black with rage. Before leaving, I sneered. Do your best. I'm looking forward to the engagement banquet. It was a blatant provocation. As expected, I succeeded in riling up Thumb Hoang until he caused an uproar within the Thumb household. Meanwhile, Ôn Phương Danh cried every day at home, desperate to prove to me that she was still the one the Ôn family cherished. As for her engagement with Thumb Hoang, the Ôn family all approved. For Ôn Thăng Loi, marrying off the foster daughter legitimized keeping hold of those family shares. For Diep Ngan Suan and Phương Danh herself, it was the perfect match, childhood sweethearts and natural pair. Entrusting him to Thumb Hoang gave them peace of mind. On this matter, the Ôn family members came to me, one by one. Ôn Thăng Loi praised my academic achievements, telling me I was still young and should focus on studies, not such concerns. He was proud of me. Diep Ngan Suan showed me photo albums of the two families' children growing up together, gently advising me not to interfere with Thumb Hoang and Phương Danh relationship. Ôn Yen Phong promised that one day he'd find me a man just as outstanding as Thumb Hoang. Phương Danh, meanwhile, told them that I had feelings for Thumb Hoang, and they believed her. Soon, rumors spread through school that I liked him. Some even claimed everything I did was just to catch his attention. After all, we were both Ôn family daughters. In the eyes of others, Ôn Yen Phong and Thumb Hoang were equals, prestigious heirs, while Phương Danh and I were reduced to little more than Thumb Hoang's potential choices. It was laughable. The results of the midterm exams soon came out. I ranked first in the entire grade, surpassing the runner-up by more than 40 points, the highest score since the school was founded. Back in his day, Ôn Yen Phong had barely made the top 20, scraping into Peking University with just enough to pass the entrance line. My results far surpassed his. And yet, in their eyes, a son was born to inherit, worthy of every family resource. Daughters, no matter how much they were spoiled, were never entrusted with real power. When they reached the right age, they were married off to bolster the son's career. I had not grown up in their honeyed environment. Whether they spoiled me or not made little difference. Even if marriage guaranteed a life without material worries, every scrap of security would still come from someone else's hand. I would always be forced to live under another's shadow. Back then, trapped in the mud, I would have clung to any outstretched hand, even at any cost. But now, I was the true heiress of the Ôn family. By law, my inheritance rights were equal to Ôn Yen Phong's. Having lived at the bottom for too long, I would not let a single opportunity to rise slip by. As for Tum Huang, the Tum family's only son, his parents did not want to push him too hard. Outwardly, they compromised, saying only that we were still too young and matters of marriage should wait until after college. When Phương Danh breathlessly told me this, I was in the middle of tennis practice. I simply answered with a quiet, and continued training. My indifference made her stomp her feet in fury. Even with the Tum parents' concession, she still felt unsafe, her hostility always aimed at me. I guessed her thoughts easily. As long as I carried a stain on my reputation, the Tum family would never let me through their doors. Her hired hand moved swiftly. Not long after, a post titled "Exposing the Past Love Scandal of the Heiress" went viral on the school forum, attracting thousands of comments.
The person who posted the article claimed to be an old classmate of mine. The post included secretly taken photos of me with male classmates back in middle school. While the actions in those photos weren't overly intimate, they weren't entirely innocent either. I had accepted rides from some, brought drinks for others, and even had private conversations with one boy in a secluded corner of the school. Using those pictures, the writer fabricated countless false details. At the end of the article, they even mentioned Jing Tiao, the heartthrob of school number 1, speculating that he was my current boyfriend. With deliberate provocation from Ôn Phương Danh, the post spread like wildfire. Even Jing Tiao himself heard about it. He reached out to me and asked, "Do you need my help?" I replied, "No need." Even without the Tum family, there are still the Li family, the Trun family, the Ôn family. There will always be someone to form alliances with. I only hope Ôn Phương Danh stirs up more trouble so my reputation becomes so tainted no one would dare marry me. He said he heard that life among the wealthy was complicated. Is it difficult for you? Difficult? Hardly. A life with money and power is nothing but luxury. I live very well. At that point, my typing paused for a moment. Over the years, he had taken good care of me. I transferred him 200 million as a token of gratitude. Consider this my thanks. Let's not contact each other again. After that, I deleted all my old classmates and left the chat group I'd pinned for years. Jing Tiao was right. The world of the wealthy was indeed treacherous. I didn't want to drag him into danger. Perhaps this was the last shred of conscience I had left. He didn't accept the money. After 24 hours, it was automatically returned to my account. With his personality, he was likely angry that I had tainted the bond between us with money. Sometimes I even admired him. His family sheltered him so much that he had never suffered, to the point where even in matters of love, money didn't matter to him. The impact of the post kept growing, eventually reaching the ears of the elders in both the Ôn and Tum families. Ôn Thanh Blai called me in for a talk. In front of him, I maintained my usual obedient demeanor and said with grievance, "They're just classmates, nothing more. Since middle school, I studied and worked. The pressure at school number 1 was intense. To stay in the top 5, I spent all my time either working or studying. How could I have had time for nonsense like that? I was always among the top 5 students at school number 1. After moving into the Ôn family, I still often studied past midnight. Naturally, he believed me. Dad, I have a math competition coming up. I don't want this affecting me. Please take care of it." He nodded, agreeing, showing concern for my upcoming contest. When I left his office, a servant told me that Yep Ngan Shung was waiting for me in the piano room. She had something to ask. Inside, she and Ôn Ngan Feng were helping Ôn Phương Danh play piano. When they saw me, all 3 faces immediately lost their smiles. Ôn Phương Danh tilted her head slightly, the corner of her eyes lifting in smug satisfaction. "Sister, you're here. Do you need something?" I ignored her and looked at Yep Ngan Shung. "What's with that post?" Before she could speak, Ôn Ngan Feng asked sternly. Yep Ngan Shung's tone was cold. "Diao Chu, you're still young. Right now, you should focus on studying. Whatever happened in the past, from now on, you're not allowed to contact those people again."
So that's all this is about. I don't see what's worth questioning. Even my brother had his fair share of girlfriends, I said lightly. Your classmates still talk about you and Miss Lum all the time. For me, it's simple. A person who isn't a little playful is wasting their youth. All the more for someone like me, a rich, beautiful heiress. There are plenty of people pursuing me, but don't worry, I know my limits. I won't let worthless men through the door.
What are you even saying? The three people across from me stared as if I'd lost my mind. I was speaking standard Mandarin. Zipkins Young and Onion Fong opened their mouths, clearly wanting to speak, but I immediately cut them off. One of you has more ex-girlfriends than you can count. The other spends every day stealing her foster daughter's future husband before she's even grown up. I honestly don't know what right you people think you have to lecture me. Then I glanced at Ôn Phương Danh, and this idiot you raised? Besides relying on men, the only thing she knows is making up rumors about me online. Completely useless. With that, I turned and walked away, ignoring their reactions. Ôn Phương Danh, feeling wronged, demanded, "It wasn't me. I'm not like that. How could you think so poorly of me?" Onion Fong said, "She's crazy. Don't pay attention to her." He'd already warned Ôn Phương Danh that I was insane, but it seemed she hadn't taken it seriously. One afternoon, just after school, one of her lackeys suddenly ran up to me in a panic and shouted, "On Tu, I saw Jiang Tiao from school number 1 at the school gates. Did he come for you?" The words instantly drew everyone's attention, but I knew Jiang Tiao's character well. After that scandalous post, there was no way he would come looking for me. If he appeared at the gates, it could only mean someone had staged it. Pushing through the crowd, I spotted Ôn Phương Danh at the staircase. She stood with Thumb Huang, her face twisted in fury, lips spewing out venomous words. I could already guess she was smearing me as impure, hoping Thumb Huang would hate me even more. I ignored the questions buzzing around me and headed straight for her. As soon as she arrived, she lashed out in front of everyone. "Sister, didn't Mom already tell you not to associate with those people anymore?" I smirked. "You really love calling me sister, don't you? But my dear little sister, you've gone too far this time. All your past tricks worked in my favor, and I was happy to ride the wave. But I already decided to let Jiang Tiao go. Dragging him into the swamp, that pisses me off." I grabbed her by the hair, yanked her forward, and before anyone could react, I slapped her across the face several times. It had been a while since I laid hands on anyone, and damn, it felt good. Gasps erupted around us, followed by Thumb Huang's furious roar. He swung a heavy punch at me. I shoved Ôn Phương Danh away, stepped back to dodge, and laughed. The great young master Thumb Huang really loves meddling in the Ôn family's business, huh? Or are you nostalgic for that little trip to the police station with me? Holding Ôn Phương Danh, his face twisted with rage, he clenched his fist and tried to charge at me again. But his friends rushed in, holding him back. He could do nothing but watch my back as I walked away, spitting curses and calling me vicious. Clearly, after the police incident, the Thumb family had warned his friends not to let him interfere in Ôn family affairs again. School number 1 and my current school were separated by just one street. Jiang Tiao knew this area well. He wasn't actually at the gates, but sitting quietly behind a row of bushes across the road, head bent over his phone, his face uneasy. Unless you looked carefully, you wouldn't even notice him. I sighed, walked straight up to him, and said calmly, "Get in the car with me." He looked up, both shocked and relieved, though his movements were awkward. We rode in silence the entire way. When we reached the gates of my apartment complex, we both got out together. The driver had already driven quite a distance before I finally asked him why he had come to my school. He said someone had sent him a letter. Inside the envelope were candid photos of me. Someone had asked him to meet at the school gate today. I took the envelope from him and asked, "Did you record the conversation?" "I did." "Send it to me over Bluetooth." Jiang Tiao froze, staring at his phone for a long time without moving. The proud hotshot of school number 1, usually brimming with arrogance, now looked timid, his voice barely above a whisper. Does it really have to be like this? I sighed helplessly. Whoever managed to capture so many photos of me in uniform definitely had an unusual background, and yet they dared to openly ask for a meeting? Jiang Tiao, you like me. He hadn't expected me to say it outright. His ears flushed red, clearly embarrassed, but his voice was firm. I care for you. Too bad. I don't have feelings for you. The truth is, I only used you. Back in sophomore year, I was sick of being harassed. Hanging around you was just a way to fend them off. Every so-called coincidence was deliberately arranged by me. You know that. You knew? That surprised me. I sneered. I've used countless people like you. To me, that's all you are. Even in Ôn Phương Zhang's slanderous post, a few details were actually true. To achieve my goals, I've manipulated both men and women, so many I can't even remember. Jiang Tiao must have seen clearly how ruthless I could be. I knew all of it, he said, his gaze burning into me, steady and intense, like he wanted to set me on fire. I laughed. All these years, you're the dumbest person I've ever met. You knew exactly what I was, and you still threw yourself at me. Hey, Jiang Tiao, I remember you were the top scorer who got directly admitted to school number 1 back then, weren't you? He looked confused, not understanding why I suddenly brought that up. It's not too late. Work hard and get into Peking University. Graduate and then come to On Corporation to help me. The cold mask I usually wore melted a little. I smiled softly, almost tenderly. I lack capable, loyal people at my side. You need to cultivate yourself into one. His face lit up with joy and determination, his eyes shining. I will definitely get into Peking University. Once, he had always ranked first or second in the entire city. After his parents' divorce, he couldn't handle it and deliberately let himself slip as a form of rebellion. Even so, he remained in the city's top 100. With his foundation, a little effort would make Peking University entirely within reach. What I lacked in non-corporation were people without vast resources, but willing to devote themselves entirely to me, like him. After slapping the An family's precious daughter earlier that day, my phone had not stopped ringing on the way home. Ôn Tang Lai was tied up with business. Ôn Yangfang had his own university life. Apart from weekends, he hardly ever came home for dinner. Yet tonight, the entire family had gathered. The moment I walked in, Jiepyan Sung and Ôn Yangfang immediately unleashed a storm of scolding. Ôn Yangfang especially looked ready to lunge at me. Meanwhile, An Fengdan cowered pitifully in Jiepyan Sung's arms, crying like the fragile little victim she pretended to be. Ôn Tang Lai maintained the air of a patriarch, but I knew that every word from Jiepyan Sung and Ôn Yangfang reflected his true thoughts. Speak. Where did you go? Why did you hit Tiao Dan? Ôn Tang Lai demanded. At last, this was the moment I had been waiting for. I handed him the letter Jiang Tiao had given me, along with the recorded audio. Biting my lip, my face full of grievance, I said, Jiang Tiao was deliberately lured here. Father, someone wants to harm me. That day, I had purposely spoken loudly that Jiang Tiao had come to see me.
That girl, someone very close to Ôn Phương Danh, was clearly colluding with her to smear me. There were so many people around, whispering about me. I was terrified. All I wanted was for her to stop talking. The more I spoke, the more wronged I felt. Tears began spilling from my eyes, though I stubbornly bit my lip and wiped them away. The three across from me had never seen me so fragile before. They were stunned. Compared to my earlier arrogant declaration about wasting one's youth if not lived indulgently, the person in front of them now must have felt like a stranger. But you still hit her. Look at Tiao Zhang's face. What have you done to it? Yep, Nung Xiang snapped angrily. Her face? I cast her a side-on glance, almost laughing outright. It looks like a pig's head. Yes, hitting her was my fault, but let me ask her something. I paused, a cold light flashing in my eyes. All of this was your doing. Were you the one to call Jiang Qiao to the school? At that, Ôn Phương Danh burst into tears. How could you think that of me? It wasn't me. You already hit me and now you want to frame me too? Even if you hate me, you can't slander me like this. Yep, Nang Xiang, distressed, wiped away her tears and turned to me, her expression full of disappointment. Shut your mouth. Apologize, An Yuan Fong ordered coldly. If Tiao Dang doesn't forgive you, then from this day on, I will no longer consider you my sister. One of you tells me to apologize, the other tells me to shut my mouth. Which one should I listen to? I asked weakly. An Yuan Fong, furious, grabbed my arm, trying to drag me before Ôn Phương Danh. I resisted, shaking him off. Don't make a scene. Finally, Ôn Tang Luri spoke up. TL2, go upstairs, put your books away, and get ready for dinner. Ôn Yuan Fong bristled with dissatisfaction, but when his father shot him a sharp glare, he fell silent. No more mention of this matter, Ôn Tang Luri commanded. Then he turned to me. TL2, come with me to the study. Yes, father. I pulled my arm free, brushing it off disdainfully as though contaminated, and walked upstairs without looking back. With Ôn Tang Luri's abilities, there was no doubt he already knew the one spreading rumors about me online was Ôn Phương Danh. A sly old fox like him only needed to think for a moment to realize who was behind today's mess. But perhaps for the sake of family harmony, or perhaps because of the years he had spent raising her, he chose to cover for her, which only made him feel guiltier toward me. It cost me nothing. At dinner, Ôn Tang Luri brought up my birthday. He said he wanted to hold a grand banquet to officially introduce me to society. I knew it was his way of compensating me. The invitations bore both our names, mine and Ôn Phương Zhang's. We would be celebrating together. That banquet would gather almost every powerful family in Beijing's elite circle. Ôn Phương Danh walked through the crowd with practiced ease. I only recognized classmates from school, while she seemed to know everyone. Among the younger generation of Beijing's high society, the voices that carried weight were An Yuan Fong and Tham Huang. Tham Huang, with undisguised hatred for me, gave his gift only to Ôn Phương Danh. An Yuan Fong gave gifts to both of us, but anyone observant could see that his gift to her was far more valuable and thoughtful, a subtle show of his displeasure toward me. Back when Ôn Phương Danh had schemed to have Tham Huang hit me, he had been indifferent, even thinking me despicable. But now that I had struck Ôn Phương Danh, his outrage was on full display, even disregarding the unspoken rule that family scandals should never be aired in public. After handing over his gift, he deliberately glared at me across the hall, his expression saying clearly, "If you don't apologize, I'll never forgive you." I raised my glass, smiling faintly, and toasted him. When Tham Huang turned his head, he too saw the scene. None of them seemed to expect that I could still smile. Their expressions turned odd. By all accounts, at this birthday banquet, both Ôn Phương Danh and I should have been the stars of the evening, yet we weren't even seated at the head table. Presiding over the main seat was a powerful magnate from the south,
a giant in the internet industry. Both the Own and Tum families were eager to win his cooperation. On either side of him sat the fathers and sons of the two houses, and further down were the power holders of Beijing's most influential clans. Mother Tum and Yep Sang sat with us, which only heightened my discomfort. Ôn Phương Danh, seated beside me, kept bragging about how well the men at the head table treated her. Her childish arrogance grated on me. Foolishness I could tolerate, but when Madame Own began pushing insistently for Ôn Feng, a mere sophomore, to be placed in the company for training, I could no longer remain silent. They were rushing far too quickly. I raised my glass and slipped through the crowd, approaching the guest of honor at the center. With practiced grace, I toasted him. "Excuse me, sir, are you the founder of the Hope Project?" "The Hope Project?" The man, tipsy, lowered his head in thought before replying, "It wouldn't be wrong to say I founded it." "Uncle Lin, please allow me to drink to you." My voice brimmed with delight. He glanced up at me and gently pushed my glass aside with the back of his hand. "You're too young to drink. It's bad for your health." This man had only one daughter, and nothing repulsed him more than seeing young women disregard themselves. Ôn Loi chuckled and introduced me. Once he learned of my academic achievements, the man praised Ôn effusively, saying he was blessed, and turned to encourage me warmly. I nodded obediently, my eyes unwavering. From a young age, I knew studying hard was the only path to a future. My foster parents refused to send me to school. I had to work to pay my tuition and living expenses. Those days were truly difficult. Here, tears suddenly welled on my otherwise determined face. But just as quickly, I smiled gratefully. Fortunately, there were still good people in the world, like you, Uncle Lin. The Hope Project supported me when I needed it the most, helping with tuition. This drink, I must have it with you. I tilted back my head and drained the glass. He made a show of concern, but the smile tugging at his lips betrayed his pleasure. "Uncle Lin, I promise I won't let the Hope Project down. My homeroom teacher says my results are the best in school history. With university exams approaching, I want to take a chance." "You want to take the exam early?" The words shocked everyone. "Yes," I nodded, lips pursed in confidence. "I want to experience the atmosphere ahead of time. Don't worry, Uncle Lin. I'm good. I won't let the Hope Project lose face." The elders laughed aloud at my bravado, showering me with praise for my ambition. Uncle Lin and Ôn Loi were carried high on a tide of admiration, beaming with pride. Ôn Loi, utterly pleased with my performance, later voiced his full support for me to sit the early university entrance exam. Ôn Phương Danh, meanwhile, sulked the whole evening, leaning against Yep Sang, whining like a pampered child. Yep Sang soothed her tenderly. When Ôn Loi left, Ôn Feng immediately reproached me. "Today was Tiao Dan's birthday. Why did you bring up your background in front of everyone like that? You did it just to embarrass her, didn't you?" My mood was good. I couldn't be bothered to argue. She's only an adopted daughter. I wouldn't waste my attention on her. The person I care about is you, dear brother. After that, I threw myself into grueling exam preparation. My goal? Beijing University. In Beijing's elite business circles, most of the towering names were graduates of that university. Passing its gates would be the first step in the grand design I had laid out for my future.
Ôn Li hired the most renowned tutors in Beijing to coach me. They were strict, relentless, and I never once slacked off. Aside from meals and sleep, every minute of my life was poured into study.
Most people at school couldn't comprehend my drive. Even my underlings often advised me, Miss Own, a wealthy heiress like you doesn't need to suffer this much. I only smiled in return. My foundation was already solid, and under the guidance of such brilliant teachers, my progress was lightning fast. In the most recent citywide mock exam, I scored perfect marks in several subjects, taking the top spot in all of Beijing. Li held a grand celebration for me, and that southern tycoon attended again. I seized the chance to flatter him a little more. He was delighted, grinning ear to ear. Not long after, he signed a successful cooperation deal with Own Corporation. Li, overjoyed, showered me with gifts. With my stellar academic record, powerful family backing, and growing reputation, my name in elite circles soared higher than ever. The poisonous rumors from that old scandal began to fade into obscurity. The Tom parents, perhaps trying to patch me and Tom Huang together, used his declining grades as an excuse to push him into my private tutoring sessions. But Tom Huang was spoiled beyond repair. He rarely listened, dragging behind in his studies, still floundering in 11th grade material, and his incompetence weighed heavily on me. To make matters worse, Ôn Phương Danh began her parade of interruptions. First fruit, then sweets, then excuses to linger. Finally, she enrolled herself in the same tutoring class. Her foundation was weak to begin with, and with her around, progress slowed even further. I tolerated it for a time, given the teachers' reputations, but eventually enough was enough. I quietly registered at Beijing's most elite exam prep center, handpicking the top specialists myself. I told no one. The next day, I was absent. Tom Huang stormed in, demanding to know why I had skipped class, dragging me outside under everyone's watchful eyes. Ôn Phương Danh chased after us, demanding, "Why didn't you come yesterday? Did you go see Zhang Tio den? I heard he's a delinquent, always bullying classmates. You shouldn't mix with him." Spreading malicious rumors was a crime, and she knew it. I smeared. A dog raised by the Own family would be better than you. At least a dog protects its master. All you do is disgrace us in public. I didn't bother wasting further words. When Tom Huang tried to defend her, I cut him off coldly. "Shut up. I found new teachers at the center. I won't waste time with the ones your father arranged. Studying alongside two idiots only drags me down. It's nothing but a waste." Without a backward glance, I walked away. Tom Huang, arrogant as he was, bristled with humiliation. His hatred for me grew sharper by the day. But Ôn Phương Danh, she actually seemed relieved. For a long while, she stopped pestering me altogether. At the end of term exams, I maintained my rank as the city's top student. During winter break, while others celebrated, I buried myself deeper in study at the prep center, even on New Year's Eve. Meanwhile, Ôn Phương Danh pranced about in limited edition designer clothes her parents had bought, a crimson dress that magnified her beauty. Onion Fong snapped photographs for her and Yep Nun Xiang. Li stood nearby, smiling with pride, gazing at them as though they were the perfect family. Outside, snow blanketed the world in silence. I curled up alone on the sofa by the floor-to-ceiling window, the warmth of the house lulling me into drowsiness. For once, the year's twilight held no whip, no cold, no pain. It was good. I smiled faintly and kept studying. After returning to school, I submitted my request to transfer into Class 12A, so I could sit for the college entrance exams just a few months later. My assigned test site turned out to be number 1 high school. The entire Own family came to cheer me on. Before I even stepped into the exam hall, reporters swarmed me, firing questions as though I were already a public figure. Zhang Tao was there as a volunteer. While showing me the way, he leaned in and whispered,
I'll wait for you in Beijing. I followed the direction he pointed and replied indifferently, I don't like waiting for anyone. Try harder and catch up on your own. My effort had not been in vain. I was admitted to Peking University, ranked third in the entire city's science track. The top two were both students from number one high, only a few points ahead of me. Own Tang Li was ecstatic. He threw me a lavish celebration banquet, while Own Corporation milked the occasion for publicity, reeling in a wave of new clients. With such an outstanding score, my early admission was guaranteed. The School of Business at Peking University was the gathering place of elites. Own Nian Feng, as heir of the Thumb family, had entered and immediately seized the position of student union president, holding absolute power among the student body. I, in contrast, began as vice president, pouring money, time, and effort into cultivating loyalty among my subordinates. I actively participated in student union affairs, joined clubs, and secured straight A's in my courses. Compliments poured in. By sophomore year's election, I defeated both Own Yinfeng and Thumb Huang, taking the presidency from myself. By then, Own Yinfeng was in his senior year, focused on business. Though my victory surprised him, he wasn't particularly bothered. But Thumb Huang, he could not accept it. For the first time in his life, the heir of the Thumb family was reduced to serving as someone else's assistant. Losing to Own Yinfeng was one thing, but to lose to me, a girl, unforgivable. Seeing his barely concealed resentment, I decided to provoke him further. You're so useless. Even your children won't carry your surname. Oh, and by the way, didn't you hear? The student union president wields great power. You'd better protect Own Fengdang well. He flared up instantly, still playing the knight in shining armor routine. If you dare bully Tell Dong, I'll never forgive you. I crossed my arms and replied coldly, She's just an adopted child. The only reason I've treated her well so far is for your sake. Soon, Own Corporation plans to expand south. After we marry, I'll have father find her a wealthy husband there. That way she can enter into a marriage alliance and at least repay we Own family's years of raising her. You're dreaming. She's your sister. How can you be so cruel? Cruel? I laughed. Marrying into wealth is hardly cruel, but if you hate me for being heartless, then fine. Save her yourself. Keep her as your mistress. Cheat on me for all I care. I gave him a wicked smile as I spoke. Thumb Huang erupted, cursing me a vicious woman, and vowed he would never marry me. During a formal meeting between the two families to discuss our engagement, he caused a scene, loudly declaring he would marry only Own Fengdong. The Own family, of course, sided with her, defending her position as his betrothed. When we returned home, I smashed everything on the coffee table, unraveling in fury. I am their real daughter. The one engaged to the Thumb family should be me. She's just an adopted child. What right does she have to compete with me? I screamed, my voice raw. I knew she had cultivated affection with them for over a decade. But why, after all my relentless striving, did they still favor her over me? If I had known this, perhaps I would never have come back. In the past, no matter the disagreements, I always maintained an icy composure. They had never seen me lose control. At first, they were shocked, ready to scold me. But hearing my words, they swallowed their rebukes. So it turned out my cold exterior was nothing but armor. So it turned out all my endless striving was just to win their acknowledgement. So it turned out I wasn't inherently difficult or distant. I was simply a child who never knew love, who never learned how to be close to a family. They, filled with guilt, tried to comfort me. But in that moment, I was too consumed by rage. Whoever tried to console me, I snapped back with barbed words.
Mother, you've always said that in your heart, Ôn Phương Danh and I are the same. Then why, on the very day I returned, when she cried, you abandoned me to comfort her instead? She orchestrated my bullying at school, even got Tham Wang to slap me, yet the first thing you did when you came was to console her. You knew she was guilty, but you still found excuses for her. You say she has no sense of security, but what about me? Do you think I have ever felt safe? If you loved the adopted daughter so much, why didn't you just tie your tubes? Why give birth to me at all? I turned toward Ong Yinfeng. Stop pretending with me. If you hadn't given silent signals to the school, would they have dared humiliate me? With your reputation, if you truly considered me a sister, would Tham Wang have dared lay a hand on me? On my birthday, who deliberately humiliated me in front of everyone? Wasn't it you? And you still have the face to preach morality? Then I looked at Ong Phương Danh. Don't act anymore. The day I came back, you deliberately wept to scare me. The very next day, you incited the entire school to bully me. And every time I so much as brushed against you, you fell as if a typhoon had swept through. The Ôn family raised you healthy and strong, yet you insist on playing the fragile heroine like Lin Daiyu. Honestly, heaven should have written your fate to end before 17. Finally, I faced my father. Father, I've long known the rumors back in high school were spread by Ôn Phương Danh. She even hired thugs to come after me. She framed me to force the Thumb family to switch the engagement to her. And you covered for her every single time. You gave her a good marriage with Tham Wang. You gave Ong Yinfeng company shares when he was only a sophomore. And me? All I ever did was try my best just to make you notice me. Why? Why are you so biased? Tears spilled uncontrollably down my face, my expression twisted with anguish, as though the weight of years of wounds was finally crushing me. For once, I demanded my rights clearly. Normally, I never asked for anything, never fought with Ôn Phương Danh. But this time, I transformed all those years of silent grievances into guilt they could no longer ignore. Yap Ngan Zang burst into tears. Ong Yinfeng and Ong Thang Loi looked stricken with guilt, shaken by my words. Only Ôn Phương Danh sat pale as death, trembling in fear at being exposed. To make up for me, Ong Thang Loi promised me a position in the corporation and granted me 5% of the shares originally meant for Ôn Phương Danh. Combined with the 5% he had previously promised me, I now held 10%. Stripped of her dignity, Ôn Phương Danh dared not object. As for the Ong Tham marriage alliance, whether she had shares or not, the family would still prepare such a rich dowry that the Thumb family couldn't refuse. Ong Thang Loi's concessions weren't just guilt, part of it was strategy. He had long wanted to reclaim her shares. My outburst gave him the perfect excuse to do so. Besides, seeing me so desperate for affection, perhaps he believed that one day with a few sweet words, he could coax me into getting the shares back to his son. A crying child gets candy. After that storm, Yap Ngan Zang and Ong Yinfeng seemed consumed with regret. They showered me with gifts, fruits and presents arriving like flowing water. When I first returned to the Ôn household, I was dazzled by money. Back then, this tactic might have swayed me. But now, I had no lack of wealth. I could buy whatever I wanted myself. Once I endured their chatter politely. Now, after having spoken my truth, whenever I saw them, I turned away coldly, refusing even a glance. And Tham Wang,
upon hearing that I had raised hell because of him, came to me, suddenly gentle. I didn't know you liked me. I thought you only wanted to steal everything Tiaolen had. So all those things you did, it was really to get my attention? He went on. Nianfang told me everything Tiaolen did to you. So you're not as cruel as you made yourself out to be. All these years you never actively harmed her. We misunderstood you. But forgive me. I already swore I'd always protect Tiaolen. He was deluding himself, and I quickly lost patience. You're pathetic, I snapped. Isn't it obvious, the way you keep circling back? Doesn't it mean you've already fallen for me? You and I were never a match. I'm curious, do you like this face of mine, or is it just that losing to me so many times has made you worship my talent? Thumb Huang's face darkened, his voice shaking with rage. Stop flattering yourself. If not for Nian Feng, I'd never have come to comfort you. I sneered coldly. Wasn't it you who misread things first? With that, I shoved him aside and walked away. Lately, I had been hitting my targets one after another. I no longer felt like tolerating anyone, least of all him, especially when he dared mention Ôn Nian Feng. Ôn Tenloi had only one son, Ôn Nian Feng, the golden heir he had been grooming since birth. As soon as he passed into Peking University, he was handed 20% of the company shares, lavish beyond measure. And me? He begrudged me even 5%, acting as if every crumb were too precious to part with. If I hadn't played my cards right, striking at the exact moment he was racked with guilt, I would have ended up like Ôn Phương Danh, empty-handed, discarded, nothing. I knew the truth. What I had now was the maximum he would ever give me. That meant I no longer had to act like the obedient daughter. I could begin to bear my claws. Even when we both entered the company, Ôn Yin Feng was gifted a chain of 5-star hotels, one of Ôn Corporation's crown jewels. Me? I was tossed a failing little gaming company on the brink of bankruptcy. Ôn Danloi thought that, when it collapsed, I would finally accept defeat. He wanted me to quietly withdraw. But I wouldn't. That company might have been rotting, but I saw it differently, a golden opportunity. Back when Ôn Corporation dabbled in gaming, they had poured money recklessly into talent, only to panic about losses. Their games were nothing but shameless clones of other successes. Servers opened, scandals erupted, lawsuits piled up. By the time I took over, the company was a laughingstock. But in my eyes, it was a battlefield waiting to be conquered. In the internet age, gaming was king. I had money. I had connections. I had the stomach to gamble. All I lacked was talent. So I hunted. At several job fairs, I noticed a group of young students burning with ambition, their eyes alive with dreams. They were from Peking University, too. Their leader, Zhu Jihuai, was a prodigy in computer science. We had crossed paths before. I still had his number. This time, I came with real sincerity and capital. They wanted to build an online world of Chinese mythology, a universe of gods and legends. Most of their team were fresh graduates from nearby universities, raw but brimming with fire. Their passion infected even the old, jaded employees who had long since given up hope. Because of their drive, these young people worked late into the night without complaint. Some even brought folding beds to crash in the office when deadlines loomed. And I gave them freedom. I gave them backing. I told them, dream without fear. For once, the entire company marched forward as one. The first thing I did after stabilizing the chaos was change the name. From ashes to ambition, Chuk Meng, the pursuit of dreams. A name that drew in a flood of new hungry talent. In gaming, youth is power. Creativity is currency. The Mythical World project demanded vast sums and endless hours. Profit would be far off, if it ever came. So in the early phase, I focused on small, unique games pitched by other teams, funding them, using my reputation to market them, raking in revenue to keep us afloat. After all, people hadn't forgotten me. Years ago, my early entrance into the national exams had shocked the city. My beauty, my lineage, my achievements, my name still lingered in the public's memory. And now I would make sure it echoed again through this company, through my games, through the empire I would build with my own hands. This time, when I appeared in public, I was already a CEO, dressed in crisp business attire, answering questions from the media about the gaming industry. Thanks to all these factors, I once again became the talk of social media. She's the own family princess, the one who took the college entrance exam early, ranked third in the city, beautiful and confident. Truly a rich young lady. Isn't she exactly like the strong female lead in a novel? Not even graduated yet and already a CEO. The ancients were right. She's the most brilliant of them all. The internet buzzed with endless commentary. Many people were curious about what kind of game I would create. Fueled by gossip and curiosity, downloads of our newly released game skyrocketed, quickly climbing to the top of the charts. The quality of the game kept players hooked, and its reputation spread rapidly. I and Trukmong had staged a successful comeback. At business gatherings, people began to call me Little Own General Manager. But there were two Little Own generals. The marriage alliance between Ôn Phương Danh and Tum Huang was proceeding smoothly. Not long after, the Ôn and Tum families held their engagement ceremony. I did not attend. Ôn Yang Feng angrily called to scold me. "Do you know how much gossip your actions have caused?" I was busy. After he finished venting, I calmly replied, "Now I know. Thank you for telling me 2 pieces of news." Then I hung up. I bought a few houses and used work and study as excuses to live on my own, rarely returning home. The next time I met Ôn Yang Feng was at a business banquet. He questioned why I hadn't replied to his messages and told me that recently Yip Ngen Sung's health had declined, urging me to visit her. I'm not a doctor. If she's unwell, what use is there in finding me? I swilled my glass of red wine, the liquid sliding along the rim. "How long do you plan on sulking?" He frowned, displeased with my indifference. Since childhood, whenever I was sick, I went to the hospital alone. No one ever visited. And now they expect me to play the dutiful daughter? She's your mother. She gave you life. You have a responsibility to take care of her. You're making money now. She doesn't need money. She just wants to see you. Is money not good enough? I asked coldly. All you people ever gave me was money. You reap what you sow. Don't be too greedy. So it's because you're always avoiding us, isn't it? Tieldan knew mother wasn't well. She postponed her exams to stay home and care for her. If only you were half as filial as she is, our family wouldn't be in this state. His words dripped with reproach. The very first day I returned to the Ôn family, Ôn Phương Danh set me up. And you all only believed her. If I hadn't prepared evidence, who knows how far she would have bullied me. My heart is frozen now, and you still have the face to accuse me of avoiding you? He was left speechless, choking on his own silence. He lowered his voice, trying to appeal to my emotions. This time, mother was upset because of father. Enough, I cut him off coldly. She was only upset because of father. Ôn Tung Li's affairs outside aren't exactly a secret. Yip Lan Slung always pretends not to know. This time, she's complaining only because my situation happened to affect her. Ôn Tung Li hates being controlled, and when she overstepped, he grew furious. And you, her son, rather than defending her, you told her to let it go and not make a scene. That's why she collapsed and had to be hospitalized. Ôn Yan Feng was born a crown prince of the Ôn family, basking in every privilege that wealth and power affords a man. Now that he held real power in the corporation, Ôn Yan Feng finally understood just how intoxicating it was. As long as Ôn Tin Loi didn't father another son, he would forgive him for anything. He angered his mother into being hospitalized, never once stayed by her side, never once apologized, and yet he expected his sister to skip her exams and play caretaker. A man who couldn't even reach the bare minimum of decency, but always perched on some moral high ground, scolding others. Every time he opened his mouth, I felt ashamed for him. You've lost your mind, haven't you, Ôn Tu? Do you have to bite everyone you meet? Tio Zing staying home to care for mother is filial piety. Not everyone is as cold as you. I looked at him and could only laugh. Her condition wasn't serious enough to need hospitalization. With so many servants in the house, was it really necessary for her to skip exams just to sit by mother's bed? A servant is no replacement for a daughter, he retorted. Tio Zhang could comfort her, keep her company. He spoke as if it were a matter of course, not that she chose to stay home, but that he thought she should, and so she read his mind and volunteered. He and Ôn Tang Loi loved to say that Ôn Phương Danh was spoiled and willful, but the truth is, every act of willfulness she displayed was carefully measured within their boundaries. She always watched their expressions before making a move. I didn't bother to hide my disgust. Ôn Yin Fong, stop circling around me, you ruined my appetite. A man so obsessed with face after that quarrel he never sought me out again. The next time we met was on the Kitchen God Festival. The Ôn family had a tradition of wrapping dumplings together that day. 2 small games from Truc Mong had gained a stable user base and decent revenue. The joy was written all over my face. While wrapping dumplings, Zieb Ngon Siong tried to strike up gentle conversation with me. Across the table, the 2 Ôn siblings stared as though they could drill holes through my skull. Ôn Tang Loi pretended not to notice, smiling as he ordered the servants to take photos, capturing this so-called warm family moment. Later, when I returned to my room, Ôn Phương Danh followed me in. There was a strange, almost triumphant confidence about her. She locked the door behind her, spun around and snapped. "Where were you on Christmas Eve?" "Where I was has nothing to do with you," I replied flatly. That one sentence twisted her face into something feral. "The wedding date between me and Thum Huang has already been set. As soon as we're of age, we'll register our marriage. No matter how much noise you make, you'll never have a chance." Then, as if savoring some private joke, she smirked. "They're only guilty for a little while. It's not the first time, you know. But whenever we clash, they always take my side in the end." I waited for her to finish, then studied her foolish grin. I couldn't help but laugh. "If what you say is true, that our parents dote on you so much, then why have you gained nothing from the Ôn family assets?" Her face twisted with resentment. "Because of you. If not for you, I would have—" I cut in. "We fought tooth and nail for a mere 5% of shares, while Ôn Yin Fong was handed 20% the moment he entered university. Clearly our parents favor him most, so why don't you fight for affection with him instead of with me?" Her mouth snapped shut. Eyes wide, no retort came. Because she knew she couldn't. In this family, he was born a rung above her. The only thing she could do was fawn over him, pray he'd occasionally stoop to treat her well. "You're talking nonsense," she protested weakly. "Our parents love me best. Mother tutored me herself. She never once tutored you or brother. Whatever I wanted, they gave me." "That's because Ôn Yin Fong was raised as heir, and your only value to be raised and married off for an alliance. That's it. The things you want don't interfere with his inheritance. The Ôn family is wealthy. Indulging your whims costs them nothing. If you had any guts, you'd throw a tantrum to break off your engagement, demand shares and heirship. Then we'd see how much they love you." My words left her mute for a moment, but she quickly forced her face back into calm.
You think highly of yourself, don't you? I have no reason to break off my engagement. I have my own dreams. I don't care about Ôn Corporation's assets, I sneered. You mean that little dream of becoming a dancer, don't you? If it was truly so important, why did you give up the chance to study abroad and stay in this country? If I'm not mistaken, it was father and brother who kept you here. They said they didn't want you so far from home with no one to look after you. But the truth is, they were afraid that once overseas, Thum Huang's affections might wander. I leaned in, voice cutting like a blade. And when mother was worked into a rage by them last time, they told you to postpone your exams to care for her. The exam you prepared so diligently for?
Convenient, wasn't it? Shut up, Ôn Phương Danh snapped, refusing to hear another word. You won't drive a wedge between us. Whether a wedge exists or not, you know better than anyone. I turned away, dismissive. If you want to dream, lock your door and dream. Don't perform in front of me. I don't like playing house with others. Get out. But she didn't move. Instead, she smirked, mocking me. Easy to say, you're just jealous that I have someone who loves me. You flirt with Thum Huang only to spite me. But let me tell you, his heart belongs only to me. Mother and father will always love me most. Everything you've done, it's all been for nothing. She always believed herself to be the center of my world. Seeing my silence, she grew agitated. Dare you say you weren't with Thum Huang on Christmas Eve? I kept my tone cool, detached. On Christmas Eve, I was working. I have no interest in weak men inferior to me in every way. That's the truth. For the first time, Ôn Phương Danh faltered. Realization flickered across her face. She had always assumed I was her only rival. But a man born with the silver spoon like Thum Huang, how could he possibly live without temptations around him? In the circles he moved in, banquets without beautiful women were unheard of. Expecting men like him to stay pure, harder than reaching the heavens. Even Ôn Ting Loi and Yep Ngan Seun had shared deep affection. At best, father had managed to avoid illegitimate children. Compared to others of equal wealth, men with multiple wives or illegitimate children showing up at their door, he was almost decent. But Ôn Phương Danh was pampered from birth. She could never bear betrayal. She hired a private investigator and caught Thum Huang at a party. Word was he lost a game, and the penalty was for a girl to pour wine into his mouth, glass after glass, until he finished. He hadn't made it past the second swallow before Ôn Phương Danh stormed in, yanking the girl off his lap by the hair. She caused a massive scene. Thum Huang scrambled to explain, then chased her outside. Childhood sweethearts weathered their first storm, only to catch him again several more times, each incident drawing the ire of his friends. Embarrassed, he lashed out harshly at her. She went home in tears, demanding to call off the engagement. Ôn Ting Loi promised to have the Thum family discipline his son, then cajoled her endlessly until she calmed. With the Ôn family behind her, she only grew more arrogant. When Thum Huang finally called, she flatly insisted on breaking it off. In that instant, Ôn Ting Loi's kind face darkened. The moment she uttered the words, "break off," his hand struck her across the face. The slap stunned her, leaving her dizzy, staring at him in disbelief, unable to comprehend how things had turned so suddenly. Yep Ngan Seun wept as she clutched her daughter. "Why hit her? Can't you talk this through?" Ôn Yang Feng quietly snatched her phone and murmured something to Thum Huang on the other end. As for me, I reclined comfortably on the sofa, savoring the spectacle of this family drama. Ôn Ting Loi began soothing her with sweet words, apologizing, coaxing. Ôn Yang Feng chimed in to help her. Ôn Phương Danh cried in her mother's arms, while Yep Ngan Seun, perhaps reminded of her own youth, wept silently at her daughter's fate. The men of the Ôn family were experts at manipulating her heartstrings. It didn't take long before she was coaxed into nodding repeatedly, even apologizing to them. The play was over, and I'd had my fill. A glamorous marriage that's hollow to the core, what worth does it hold? She clawed her way toward this union, but with a man like Thum Huang, how much happiness could she ever hope for? Just picturing her bleak future was enough to delight me. Zhang Tiao drove over to pick me up. He hadn't graduated yet, so he couldn't join the company, but he handled various private matters for me on the side. "Looks like President Ôn is in an excellent mood today," he teased with a smile. I curved my lips into a smile of my own. Watching hypocrites rip off their masks, it's quite the entertainment. You've worked hard, he said softly. Game development was costly. The revenue from the company's first 2 small games had all been funneled into patching the abyss called Divinity Above All. The company stayed afloat only because I poured in my own money. When Chu Jihuai and the others realized how tight my finances were, they volunteered to take pay cuts. I refused. Divinity Above All is everyone's dream. If I can't contribute my skills, then let me contribute money. Leave the rear guard to me. Your job is to charge forward without hesitation. My words moved them. They threw themselves into overtime with relentless drive. At last, after a year and a half, the game launched its public beta. Just as I predicted, praise poured in. I spent heavily on promotion, even attending the press conference myself. After presenting the game, I recounted the struggles the team had endured. When this team first formed, nearly all of them were fresh graduates of Peking University. Hardcore gamers, bound together by one shared dream, to bring China's mythological world into the global gaming stage. In that narrative, I became the figure of the well-off, high-achieving junior, moved by their dream. Chu Jihuai's bright looks didn't hurt. His core members, dressed sharply, men in black suits and women in tailored skirts, looked every bit the part. The camera swept across faces that were all impossibly young. At first, their story outshines the game itself. Online, rumors swirled that Chu Jihuai and I had something between us. Otherwise, why would I invest so much in him? Many began shipping us. Screenshots of our work chat leaked. Holiday bonuses and gift messages from me circulated across blogs. Net Designs dubbed Chukmong the Dream Company. Most business leaders avoid the spotlight, unwilling to endure the internet's venom. But me? Only results mattered. I couldn't care less what the public thought of my image. And results came. Exactly as I foresaw, the noise drew massive traffic from players. On launch day, Divinity Above All was so hot it crashed the servers. The game did not betray my expectations. Revenue soared. It became a rising star in the gaming world. Eventually, the Own family noticed. To Own Tang Liu, I had always been the neglected daughter desperate for scraps of affection, clinging to him for validation. They never once paid attention to me, nor to Chuk Meng, which they thought was bleeding money. So when Divinity Above All's daily revenue figures stunned them, their shock was palpable. They never imagined the daughter they had ignored could achieve something so formidable. Father and son staged a celebratory banquet, supposedly in my honor, but the endless toasts and hollow congratulations made it clear it was the same treatment Ôn Phương Danh had always received. Her eyes burned into me across the table, as if she could stab me with her glare. At last their true intentions surfaced. After thinking they had softened me up, they revealed what they really wanted. Chuk Meng. Handed over neatly into Onya Feng's hands. I rejected them outright, even complained endlessly and demanded they pay me back. Seizing the moment, Ongin Feng put on a sympathetic face and told me not to worry anymore, that they would take care of everything for me. I snorted in disdain. Years of sweat and tears, and you think I'll just hand it all over for you to take care of? You've been running the family hotels for years, and what have you accomplished? Nothing worth mentioning. The words had barely left my lips when Ong Yin Feng's temper flared. The entire family bristled with tension. Even though my sarcasm had been aimed squarely at him, Ong Teng Loi's silence couldn't hide the irritation on his face. They had finally seen my ambition. Between me and them, only one step remained before we tore the masks off completely. Divinity Above All was a massive success. Both PC and mobile versions flourished, recouping investments far faster than I'd anticipated. With Trukmong's reputation spreading like wildfire, the company amassed a legion of loyal fans, saving me a fortune in marketing costs. After graduating from Peking University, I poured my entire soul into my career. More and more of Trukmong's projects became integrated into Own Corporation, carving out a new, lucrative sector in the gaming market. Profits soon surpassed other subsidiaries, making Trukmong one of the Own's flagship divisions. At board meetings, I sat at On Ten Loy's light hand. By then, my rivalry with On Fong was out in the open. Every encounter ended in a clash, the company splitting clearly into two camps. Yip Nganzong, unwilling to see the family fall into open conflict, tried persuading me several times, but I brushed her off. Seeing I was immovable, she gave up and quietly transferred 10% of her shares to me. Her decision left me momentarily stunned. Seeing my expression, she faltered and softly explained, Dao Jin and Them Wang are strong together. I don't worry about them. But you've never asked me for anything. This is the only way I can do something for you. Biased though she might have been, she was still the one who cared for me the most in this family. Tao Tu, do you hate me that much? She asked. No, I answered flatly. You have money and time, raise whoever you like. Honestly, On Fun Jen never really harmed my interests. On the contrary, she's uninadvertently helped me plenty. Yip Nganzong was taken aback by how rational I was. She stood there dazed before regaining her composure. Take care of yourself. If I have time, I'll come visit you, I added, my tone unusually gentle as I smiled at her. She nodded, eyes brimming with tears, squeezing my hand tightly before finally letting go. Watching her frail back retreat, I felt no ripple in my heart. With 20% shares and Trukmong, I secured the position of CEO of Own Corporation. On Fong was completely ousted. Under my leadership, Own Corp rode the internet wave, transforming successfully and leaving behind Thumb Corp, once an equal rival. On the domestic Forbes rankings, I had far surpassed both Own Fong and Thumb Wang. President, rumor has it that the young Master Own and young Master Thumb nearly lost their minds today. Jiang Xiao reported, his voice brimming with glee. And why's that? I asked lazily. At the Trin family's evening banquet, someone said the combined worth of those two spoiled brats of Beijing still doesn't measure up to you, Chairman. I chuckled. Well, they're not wrong. That's just how it is. When you have both knowledge and wealth, those who rely only on men are nothing more than stones on the roadside.